It's been more than 10 years since the New York Times had created their paywall for subscribers-only content. And of course, back in the day, there was really little that subscription businesses could learn from the New York Times and other news media because they were really mostly advertiser focused. Well, today, the New York Times has a tremendous, more than 2/3 of their revenue comes from subscriptions. And you can see the breakdown between digital subscriptions and print subscriptions here, that the digital subscription business has increased dramatically in the last 10 years and is now a key driver in the business. And a subscription business of any type can learn a lot by studying what the New York Times is doing now. Welcome to Be Unleavable Subscription Growth. I'm your host, Robert Skrob, and we're going to really dive into what news media are doing within the subscription business. And again, it was really not that long ago that they could just be ignored within the subscription world. Yes, they had subscriptions, but it was so little as part of their revenue stream that they really were more beholden to their advertisers. And anybody that's tried to navigate a local newspaper website can see that they still have more of a advertiser focused than they have a subscriber focused, because the sites are almost unusable with all the pop-ups and the drop-downs and the images and the autoplay videos. It's a complete bunch of nonsense. The New York Times and other big subscription businesses have made huge strides, particularly over the last year or so because of the pandemic. Now these are really at the forefront of subscription innovation and split testing and learning. And any subscription business, whether you're in SaaS or subscription box or publishing in particular, can learn a ton from these subscription businesses because they've got millions of subscribers and they're able to split test and they're able to learn a lot from the traffic and the users that they've had. Most recently, they had a huge increase in the amount of traffic and the number of subscribers they were able to generate because of the pandemic, increased the interest and drove a lot of traffic. Recently, however, they've had to innovate even more because readers have become, less interested. They still are focused, but these sites are generating a lot less traffic over the last year than they were during the pandemic. You can see here, how drastically down a lot of these news sites are because of pandemic. New York Times, you can kind of see there in the middle, is down about 13% traffic. And really what that's meant is that these news sites have had to be smarter about converting what they call casual readers into subscribers. And this is a challenge that I work with a lot of subscription businesses. You're able to get those true believers, those big fans, subscribe fast. Then you have the heavy users, the people who really have a tremendous return on investment from subscribing because they use the heck out of your service and they subscribe. But then those kind of casual readers, the people who really aren't all the way in, they might, these are the ones that benefit from a free service for sure, but they're not quite to that threshold where they are going to really jump in to become a real subscriber. Well, these news media have done a ton of research, and I'd like to share some of it with you. There is an association that serves the news media called the International News Media Association. They recently published this report, Light Readers, Digital Subscriptions Next Growth Path. And I'd encourage you to check out here in the comments or in the notes, there is a link to where you can go and buy a copy of this report and consider joining the association. Greg, the author, has done a tremendous job, and I'd like to share this a little bit of this report with you. And you can check out, here is the table of contents. You can see how they're comparing 2020 to 2021, and they really break down how to engage that light, what they call a light reader, or for you, maybe a light user, somebody who's interested but not quite ready to get across the threshold. So let's dive in a little bit into this report. And there's a number of great graphics that I'd like to share with you. And really this overall shows you that the hockey stick growth that New York Times and Washington Post in particular saw in terms of growth, 58% media change in subscriber base. And COVID year publishers broke records in subscriptions. Top 10 brands, New York Times, 7.1 million, Washington Post 3 million, Wall Street Journal 2.7. Tremendous growth in subscriber demand because of 2020 and the interest in the news. And this is interesting, that really where this starts to talk about these light readers. And this is a fascinating illustration I'd like to share with you from this report. The fans, heavy readers, kickstart subscribers, but they can't sustain the growth. So this kind of shows this chasm, as we were describing before, where the true fans and the heavy users, they're very quick to subscribe, but those late adopters and then kind of everybody else that's following along because they do what everybody else does, what the crowd does, they are slow to subscribe. And there's this chasm to kind of leap over, trying to get from those true fans to bringing in those light readers, late adopters, and bring in enough mass in order to grow your business. This is a challenge that I see in subscription businesses all the time. They're priced for mass adoption, but they're only attracting their true fans and the heavy users, and they aren't getting that mass adoption yet, and they're stuck financially because they don't have enough cash in order to spend enough in order to acquire new subscribers, and yet they don't want to raise their price because they're afraid that those heavy users that are dedicated to getting tremendous value will out and become light readers or light users again if you raise the price. So it's this catch that they're stuck in and they're not able to move through. Here's a neat little chart. This is actually where the report gets into actually training, where the real key, you have 100 days to engage new subscribers. And this is really fascinating because what this illustrates is that in order to keep a new subscriber, you must engage them early. Month-over-month retention for monthly subscribers, media rate, you've got about 3 months since purchase in order to keep the subscriber, because most new monthly subscribers churn in the first 3 months. This middle chart, readers are most likely to adopt a new feature within the first 100 days, shows you that if you've got new features, you have something that you're trying to get a subscriber to use, then you've got really 100 days to get them to do it. Or you kind of look, a very low percentage of subscribers are going to adopt beyond that first 100-day period. And then finally, in the third panel here, you have people adopt a new habit on average after 66 days of repetition. In order to get your subscriber to incorporate you into their life, if you have a SaaS tool, you have a publication, you have some sort of product that you're sending your subscribers to consume, you really, in order to get them to make a habit, they've got to use it for that 66 days in order to really make it something that they're going to do for life. And this really gets to the key that retention is all about that first window of subscription. Now, these are learnings from thousands. You can look at these footnotes. These are learnings from thousands, millions of users. And what they've discovered is that you really just have about 2 to 3 months in order to keep a subscriber, or else they're going to churn. If you don't engage them then, you've lost your opportunity. And that really gets to the book Retention Point that I had the opportunity to author and publish back in 2018, May of 2018, where we talk about onboarding and the on-ramp and how to get your subscribers engaged. And this is really one of the key learnings from that book. And it's interesting that the International News Media Association and these huge brands that have rolled out their subscriptions have found really the same thing that I was talking about back then. And my association with this report is I've been a speaker at one conference I think I was there a speaker for an hour at one of their sessions, and the author of this liked my book Retention Point, so he adopted some of the ideas into the report. But I had nothing, this is their report, and beyond writing the book and them reading it, I have had no involvement in this, but it's really, really well done. So this book, Retention Point, what news readers think is the aha, analysis of 428 news sites. So this is millions of users. They've defined that retention as a return visit. The threshold is 8 active days. So that retention point, we talk about in the book, the retention point comes from the Netflix term, the hooked point, where what is that point at which somebody is watching a Netflix show and that they get so excited they want to watch to the end, and that they some actually stay up all night and or stay up until they've finished the entire series. And Netflix called that hooked point. What I kind of borrowed the idea and term is, at what point are your subscribers so hooked that they love you so much that they wouldn't think of giving up your subscription? And obviously you already have subscribers who are there. You couldn't get rid of them if you wanted to. Well, but what if we on purpose tried to create more of those? Now let's figure out at what point do individuals, subscribers, get to that point, and now how can we re-engineer this? Well, Emma actually did a study on this specifically and published it within this report that shows that you really got about 8 days. We define retention renewal. Actually, the threshold is 4 days of getting your subscribers engaged in order to get them to that hooked point where they're going to be engaged. This also, I think, is fascinating. Enma is also talking about these hop-on, hop-off writers. Casual subscribers join when they're interested, cancel when they're not, and then sign up again. I thought this was fascinating. Viewers who buy multiple streaming subs but cancel repeatedly. There is 5 is the average number of paid streaming, and 46% of all viewers cancel at least one in the previous 6 months. So subscribers are joining and they're also canceling. And this is one of the new realities, is that for years, when you were the only streaming service, you could depend on subscribers joining and being your subscriber for years. Now that there's multiple services, subscribers will join, be your subscriber for a year or 18 months, and then cancel and then move on to the next streaming service for a year or 18 months, and then cancel and move on to others. There certainly are some subscriptions that they lock in, and that's one of the things that we work with clients, is becoming the one that they keep and not being the one that gets rotated through. But there is more and more, as there's so many subscription offerings, we're going to see a lot of subscribers jumping in and jumping out. One more thing in this Enma report that I thought was fascinating was this quote from the president and CEO of the New York Times. The last 10 years were to test our strategy that journalism was worth paying for, and the next 10 years we try to scale that idea. And I remember 10 years ago, while I lauded the idea of the New York Times going to a subscriber focus, I knew that the team wasn't right, the culture wasn't right. The journalists, that are used to having their information available for free were going to resist and be frustrated with having a paywall where only subscribers would be able to see their work. and that the last 10 years have been about training the team and training the readers that the subscription model is what works for news media content. Because it's been many decades that the idea was that it had this nominal cost and it was advertising priced and driven. And the New York Times has done a spectacular job over the last decade. I think it was March of 2011 when they really instituted that paywall. So for the last 10 years, working through the culture, getting individuals trained that they needed to be paying for that New York Times content. And now it's time to scale that idea and move that on. I absolutely encourage you to take a look at this INMA report. There's the link down in the notes below this video. You'll definitely want to subscribe if you're at all in the news media. You would want to benefit very strongly from becoming a member of INMA and taking a look at what they have to offer. If this video has been useful for you, please click the like button and subscribe. We've got tremendous videos about subscription businesses and the insights that they bring. And also check out the 9 models driving subscription growth. It's available at www.9provenmodels.com. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode of Be Unleavable Subscription Growth.